Good day. A report recently emerged that 12,000 companies and firms, businesses, mainly industrial companies, have closed down in Germany over the course of the past 3 years. Over the course of the past 3 years of the Ukraine war, there has been decidedly some countries that have been on the winning side of the war and some that have been on the losing side of the war. On the winning side, obviously, would be China, India, and most definitely Russia, which over the course of the past 3 years has not only stood the full brunt of the sanctions by European countries and America, it has also, on the war, on the battlefront, won four oblasts: Kherson, Lugansk, Donbass, and Zaporizhia, of which it just recently liberated the whole of Luhansk. But most definitely, it has done so well in staving off the whole attack by the whole NATO alliance and their Ukrainian proxies. Then on the losing side, of course, is Ukraine. Ukraine has lost a lot of people. Some estimate that well over 1 million people have been lost, but it is the demographics of Ukraine that has really been impacted, that in the sense that a lot of people have left Ukraine and reshaped the demographics of Ukraine. Young men have left, women have left, and it is estimated that Ukraine may have lost 10 million people, not just to the war, but to immigration. But also, you should recognize that Ukraine has also lost four oblasts, and they are losing more territory in Sumy and now also in Zaporizhia and Dnipro. So this is what Ukraine has lost physically. They've lost their most lucrative and their most fertile and productive parts of their country. But then the greatest losers also are the alliance that has come and fought against Russia in this war, notably the NATO alliance and the European Commission. But if you now piece them up and take the European Commission and disaggregate them into individual countries, the country that definitely has lost the most is Germany. Good day and welcome to my channel, Ebima Amungo's Perspective on Global Affairs. If you're new to this channel, please subscribe. If you have any comments regarding the ideas I express here, please leave them in the comment section and do well to like and share. Germany was very reluctant participant in this project of the Ukrainian war with Russia. Their last minister, their last chancellor, Olaf Scholz, was a very late recruit. He just started his chancellorship and he was recruited into this project. He was very reluctant. It was at the time of making this decision to be a full participant in this attack on Russia that one of the most important arterial pipelines that supported German industry over the course of the past several years, the Nord Stream pipeline, was blown up. It is suspected that that pipeline was blown up by American CIA agents. Some have also said it may have been Ukrainian SBU agents, but generally it was blown up. So for the Russians, for the Germans who through that pipeline, and the Europeans who through that pipeline imported well over 40 billion cubic of gas from Russia to Europe, that was a big blow for them because unlike Russia, Europe is not resource rich. And this impact on Germany was even more telling because Germany was just at the last phase of implementing a campaign to shut down its nuclear plants. Germany has been under the spell of the neo-globalists for a long time, and for those people, they have insisted on things like global climate change. And when the Fukushima nuclear disaster happened in the earthquake in Japan, it prompted and energized the Green Party and the Germans to not to fall out of love with nuclear energy. So Angela Merkel's government put a time plan for the closure of nuclear plants across Germany. And it was just at the time that they were almost rounding up their last nuclear plant that this Ukraine war broke out. So they suffered the double whammy of losing nuclear energy and also losing energy from gas and Russian energy. And the impact on it on German industry was immediate and tremendous. It hit them very hard. It hit German industry so hard that some of the most iconic German firms decided to leave Germany. We know of BASF, which went to China and built a new plant. And to a large extent, most of the big German industrial concerns started to think about relocating to new markets where they could carry on their industrialization that at one time made Germany the biggest exporting country in the world, helped them build a very robust economy, and to this extent that they became the third, like by value of GDP, because of the export of their industrial products. Germany is known as the powerhouse of European economy. So Europe losing that amount of Russian gas was particularly hard on Germany because it hit their heavy industry. Germany is known for heavy industry, steel, machinery, and anything that you think of that has precision and high industry, their automobile industry. Was so impacted to this extent that it has damaged even their capacity to export. So most of German exports these days, as it turns out, has veered towards investing in China and America. German, as an industrial location, has become non-competitive because of high energy costs. So they are a very big, very, very, very big. They had a very big impact from the loss of Russian gas. But you will wonder, why is it that Germany is the most impacted? Well, Germany is the most exposed. Angela Merkel and Schroeder, as I had said in one previous video, tried to improve relationship with Putin and the Russians. And Russia particularly, you should know, Putin has always been someone who liked the Germans. It has been said repeatedly, he speaks German. He was a KGB spy in Germany, and he found an affinity for that country. And post the fall of the Soviet Union, Putin built good relationship with German Chancellor Schroeder and later Angela Merkel, and helped in developing stronger Russia-German ties. But this war in Ukraine broke that relationship. I had said also in a previous video how Olaf Scholz did his best to manage this relationship. He did. He was not so keen on this project, but over time he was slowly drawn into the project because at the early stages, the most he could give Ukraine was helmets and army uniforms. He wasn't keen on giving them arms, but by the time he was leaving, he had given them as much arms as Germany could produce. The only red line for him was that he wasn't going to give them long-range missiles, the Taurus missiles that the Germans are known for. That one has a range of 500 miles and it could go straight into hitting facilities around Moscow. So that was a red line he drew. But Friedrich Merz, the chancellor has taken over from him, doesn't have that kind of view. He's very hawkish against Russia. Him and the head of the European Union, Ursula von der Leyen, have been two Germans who have changed the relationship between Germany and Russia irreversibly. So now there's almost no relationship, as there's no possibility that that relationship will be coming back to fall. But this is not just what the loss of German energy is not just what the Germans, Russian energy is not just what the Germans lost. They also lost the Russian market. As one of the world's biggest automotive manufacturers, Mercedes-Benz, BMW, and other iconic German brands like Volkswagen were big participants in the Russian market space. They had huge market share in Russia. But when they left, Because of the sanctions, they lost that market, a very lucrative market that has now been taken over by the Chinese. The Chinese cars have now swarmed over Moscow, and in the first year of their living, the Russian market, the Chinese sold as much as 700,000 cars. They are well on their way to selling about 1 million cars, and they formed joint ventures with many, many Russian companies that it's almost is like even if this war ends, the Germans will never be able to get back that market share because now the Russians have found out that the Chinese cars are as good as the German cars, if not better. So we see a situation here now where the German industries have to now leave. They're thinking about leaving. Europe as a whole has lost a lot to this war. Europe is now in a point where we have a situation where, apart from the high energy cost, there's the high energy cost has prompted a situation where they're trying to get alternatives. Ironically, the Europeans are now going to buy reprocessed. They're buying Russian gas and Russian oil through intermediaries, notably the Indians, who buy these petroleum products, refine them, and send them to Europe. So they are paying a higher price for it. They are also now buying a lot of LNG from America and Qatar at higher cost. So energy prices have become more for most European countries. The backlash on Europe has been tremendous. But if there's no backlash more than the effect on the financial systems of Europe, because now that financial system and the euro system has lost a lot of trust in seizing Russian sovereign assets. A large part of the $300 billion Russian assets that has been seized is within the Euroclear system in Belgium. And for that reason, that Euroclear system is now, it's lost a lot of its credibility. Countries like the Middle Eastern countries that tend to produce surplus all the time, rather than go park their money in these systems, are now thinking about buying gold and investing more within their local economies. So this is also one of the great losses. But another loss is the one that is most obvious to all of us: the assault on democracy in Europe. Because of the Russia war is not popular among the populace of the Europeans, but are only among the elites and the leading class. Those people who have called, those groups who have called for better relations with Russia have tended to be sidelined, arrested, undermined. A case in point is the group in Germany called the AfD. They did very well in the elections. And one of the big selling points is that they promise that they are going to um, they are going to re-establish relationship with Russia. They have been labeled as an extremist party so that they will not achieve that aim, even though they did very well and came second in the last elections in Germany. Another party is the National Front in France, where Marine Le Pen also has stated that she will make peace with the Russians, and re-establish relationship with the Russians, sorry. And what has become of her? She has been arrested and indicted for fraud. We have seen also how democracy has retreated in Romania, and democracy has been challenged in places like Moldova, all these places that have had elections where pro-Russian candidates have been sidelined, arrested, and other nasty things happen to them. Democracy now in Europe is not the kind of democracy that the Europeans themselves had always preached. So Europe finds itself squeezed from many parts. Economically, they have higher energy costs. Diplomatically, they are not as effective because the world have seen that despite all their attempts to crush Russia has survived them. The injustice in their actions has become very clear to a lot of people. The Ukrainian issue has become one that the Russians are winning the propaganda because at the heart of it is the security of Russia. NATO expansion close to Russia has been something the Russians have said is a threat to them. And an existential threat in that matter, because if NATO missiles and NATO warheads start to line their borders, they almost have no time to react. So for them, for a long time, NATO joining NATO was not, Ukraine joining NATO was not acceptable to them. And that argument has been the argument of the Russians, and now is the argument that is winning the day. And people are getting to see the side of the point of view of the Russians. The Chinese see that point of view. The Indians see that point of view. The Brazilians and all the other members of BRICS. And with the recent event that happened between the Israel and Iran, that tendency of the greater powers to impose their will on other countries becomes very clear, and they now understand better Russia's position regarding to Western countries being close to their borders. So Europe has lost out. Europe's voice in the world stage is smaller now, and we are now in an era where America, under the presidency of Trump, has shifted away from that war, the Ukrainian war. Donald Trump is not a fan of that war, not a fan of Zelensky. He has said that, and definitely not a fan of the Ukrainian people whose citizen was the one who was a whistleblower that gave the information that led to his first impeachment. I have said repeatedly that Donald Trump holds a grudge against Ukraine and Zelensky, and he's never going to support them. Attempts by the Europeans to turn its face into that war and plead on Ukraine's behalf to continue the war has fallen on deaf ears. Europeans have lost. They've lost their status in the world. They've lost their financial system. They've lost their economic dominance. And where do they now have to go and get new markets? Ironically, China. China is both a savior and a killer for the Europeans at this point in time. Chinese industry has grown. China is now outmatching the Europeans in innovation. They are now bringing their Chinese cars, their Chinese industry, and their Chinese goods down into Europe, to the point where even Chinese medical equipment is now a threat to European industry. This is where we are now. But ironically, it's also in China that they can sell products now. They can sell their French wine. They can sell more German products, because let me give you statistics now. In America, Volkswagen sells 300,000 vehicles, but in China, Volkswagen sells almost 4 million vehicles. The disparity is shocking. But this is also, that 4 million figure is dwindling every year. The Chinese car makers like BYD, XPeng, NIO are taking market share. There's also Chang'an, there is Great Wall, there is SAIC. They are taking market share, they dominate the market, and that's a market that produces over 30 million cars. Legacy car makers from Europe are losing market share. In fact, one particular country almost has no market share at all in China, and that's France. But the French have done better. They have a good percentage of their energy costs coming from nuclear plants. They are way ahead of every other country as their investment in nuclear energy. And theirs are more resilient. They tend to take care of tourism and then the high-end goods. So they are not as impacted as the Germans have. But collectively, the Europeans are not in a good place. The Russian war has decimated Europe. And we are at the age where we are seeing Europe fade away slowly from a point of relevance. G7, NATO, European Union is just not saving them. New alliances like BRICS, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization are now the ones we hear about. Slowly, Europeans are fading away. And it's no place you will see this more than in Germany. This is where I come to the end of my video for today. If you have any idea or any comment regarding what I've said, please leave them in the comment section. If you feel that the Europeans, your whatever opinion you have about the Europeans regarding this Ukrainian war and their strong support for Ukraine, how it has impacted them, please leave them also in the comment section. Like and share. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Thank you. Until I see you again in my next video.